Good evening and welcome to the Roseville City Council meeting of February 5th, 2025. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask our clerk to please read the roll.
Thank you. We'll start with Vice Mayor Albert.
Here.
Councilmember Haudteschelt.
Here.
Councilmember Mendoza is excused from tonight's meeting. Councilmember Rakucci.
Here.
And Mayor Bernasconi.
Here. Thank you. We have a lot of students here tonight, and I would like to call upon Roseville High School student, senior Lily Zawal, to please come to the podium there and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lily. I'd like to ask our clerk to please announce the meeting procedures.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Roseville City Council meeting. Agendas are available at the end of the staff table to your right or online on our city's website. All comments from the public should be directed to the City Council and not to any member of the audience or to staff. All speakers must speak from the podium as this meeting is being recorded tonight. For members of the public that wish to address the City Council regarding an item that is not listed on tonight's agenda, it must be within the subject matter jurisdiction of our City Council. Public comment is limited to 25 minutes for this first segment, and each speaker will have 3 minutes to make their comments. If the time limitation is reached in the first segment, individuals will have a second opportunity at the end of the council meeting, just prior to council comments, to have another opportunity to make comments. The Brown Act does prohibit our City Council from discussing, debating, or taking actions on items that are not listed on tonight's agenda. For those items appearing on the agenda, the Brown Act does allow for public comment on all items listed on the agenda. Speakers will have 5 minutes to provide input and should be relevant to the item being considered tonight. Time will be monitored, and once the red light begins to blink at the podium, we ask that the speaker please conclude their comments. The City Council encourages public participation and requests that you please be courteous during the meeting. Lastly, if addressing the City Council tonight, please consider stating your name for the record. With that, welcome to the City of Roseville.
Thank you for that. We have 4 speaker cards. They're on the table, as Carmen mentioned. And tonight we will start with Robert Elster. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. How are you? Good. Fantastic. It's great. Can you believe a whole entire year has transpired since the last time that I saw you? I'm with the Placer Veteran Stand Down, and there are many things in your packet that I left on your desk. That is that we have a fundraiser coming up on the 1st of March, and that's going to be at the VFW Center right behind us here. And so that's going to be really a great thing, as well as the fact that we have a stand down coming up, and that is going to be on May 6th through May the 8th, and the gates will open at 8 a.m. I've also included in your package our QR code, so then you can snap that little thing and if you want to make a donation, that'd be great to our cause. I've been involved with the Stand Up organization for 15 years. I'm also a local resident of Roseville, and I was born in Roseville Community Hospital, when it was called Roseville Community Hospital on Francis Drive. And I was born at 315 Oak Ridge Drive, Roseville, California. I am so grateful to have you, my city council, as I consider you my city family. You've been a part of me for a great period of time, and I'm grateful for every single one of you. And thank you so much for you guys supporting us as veterans. And I was a veteran of the United States Coast Guard. We're the Word branch, the smaller one off the other side, not the Marines, Air Force, Army, or anything else like that. But I am a very proud citizen of Roseville, California, and I can't believe it's been 15 years that I've been involved with this. So I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the fact that you let me speak tonight. And our wonderful two events coming up, and that's the fundraiser and the Placer Veteran Stand Down. Thank you so much for letting me present to you tonight. And you guys have any questions? But here's the cool part. If you guys see these are my keys. These came from
I remember
the
that.
Placer Veteran Stand Down. These are my glasses. I got these from the Placer Veteran Stand Down as well. Hey, what better model than to use yourself as that person? And I really appreciate you guys participating with us, because without your participation, I wouldn't have been able to get this done. I wouldn't have been able to do my 15 years of great service, of gratitude, and I enjoy being the servant of this wonderful city.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Alster. And thank you for the materials, too. Okay, we will move on to our next speaker. Is Amelia Kelly here? Good evening.
Good evening, Councilor. I come before you tonight in honor of Black History Month and to talk about nonviolent civil disobedience in the face of racist bullies. On the 1st of February 1960, only 65 short years ago, 4 young black men attending North Carolina A&T sat down in a Woolworth's diner in Greensboro, North Carolina, in defiance of local segregation laws and as a means of protesting the legal myth of white supremacy. On that day, Ezel Blair, Joseph McNeil, Franklin McCain, and David Richmond unknowingly started a ripple that would turn the tide against apartheid in America. Since that day, rich white people, especially white men from former slaveholding states, have done everything within their considerable means to maintain the culture of separation and minority subjugation that stains our national history. We as white people bear a responsibility to tell these stories to those in power as a reminder and a warning. To remind you that we know what is behind us, and to warn you we are not going back. We are no longer interested in your casual cruelty disguised as fiscal responsibility. We are no longer interested in your veiled white supremacy disguised as concern for property values. We are no longer interested in white racists using local laws to conserve bigotry and claiming they protect business and traditional American values. We are no longer interested in tolerating bigots because we have similar shaded skin. Or to dumb it down for you, white nationalists aren't safe around European Americans anymore. White supremacy needs to go on the pile of dead pseudosciences of the past. I say all of that as context for my following statements. Republicans, Donald Trump has crossed the Rubicon, and this is your moment to separate yourself. All you have to do is publicly state that he doesn't represent you and you won't comply. To quote Elon Musk, we are at a fork in the road, and you can choose to follow the path of least resistance and submissive compliance, or you can choose to resist autocracy and stand with all Americans, not just the white ones.
Thank you. Is Lloyd Reber here? Good evening.
Good evening. State my name, Lloyd Reber, as you mentioned. So I want to thank you, Madam Mayor, council members, for giving me this time to speak. I just wanted to come to you and speak about the training and education. As a member of the Northern California Carpenters Union, I've been able to create a career without any education payments. I've been able to not just get through the apprenticeship, but to also take further training at both the International Training Center as well as my local training centers here in California, and leadership training, and to use that as to be a better citizen, a better family member, a better church member. So my ask of you is to consider when you offer projects in your city, that you would consider the members on that project and the work that they do and the education and training, and require, at least consider requiring apprenticeship and training, as well as area standard wages and benefits. So I just want to thank you for your time and appreciate you.
Thank you very much. The last speaker card I have is Kate Rosenlieb. If there's anyone else who would like to speak, you can bring forward your card.
Good evening. Some of you may remember I spoke to this body on November 6th at a public meeting regarding a proposed land use change in West Roseville. As a follow-up to the November City Council meeting, I would note that the city has a couple areas I believe could be improved on procedures which could increase public engagement and transparency. First and foremost, your agendas state, as they do tonight, quote, "Speakers have 5 minutes to address items that are listed on the agenda," end of quote. Yet, in practice, that's not what happens, and your written procedures should match your practices. In practice, developers are allowed as much time as they want at the podium for both statements and rebuttals. So why do your agendas say speakers have 5 minutes to address items on the agenda? At the November meeting, our opposition side was mistakenly given 3 minutes per speaker. Although I requested additional time, I was at least given the minimum procedural time of 5 minutes to speak. And then we found out during the public hearing, in spite of your written procedure, developers have no time limits at all on their presentations, and the developer that night was allowed more than 3 times the amount of time we were allowed to speak. The developer spoke for over 9 minutes. And developers are allowed unlimited rebuttal time as well, and residents are not offered any rebuttal time. This is not what your agenda procedures say at all. At the very least, I would expect your agendas to state your real practice. So I'm requesting you update your agendas to outline what residents can really expect on speaker time limits. And I'm hoping you might consider allowing both sides to land use decisions to have equal time to speak, rather than overtly favoring developers the way that you are. Many other cities have procedures that are clear, concise, and offer equitable time. For example, Bakersfield public hearing land use issues allow a maximum of 15 minutes per side, with each side getting a 5-minute rebuttal. Secondly, at the November meeting, the then mayor requested staff look into the guidelines for the conversion of non-residential properties. What is the update on that effort? Because again, the city's rules say one thing, but the practice that planning staff has engaged in is different from the written rules. The way staff interpret and apply the guidelines, any proposed conversion of vacant land to any sort of development won't ever create a negative fiscal impact. So why have the guidelines on vacant land conversions at all? The guidelines are not written the way they've been interpreted by staff. I offer these comments in the spirit of making my new city be as transparent and as equitable as possible. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for your comments. Is Jennifer here? Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, thank you, council members and mayor. My name is Jennifer Chapman. I'm from over at 707 Sunrise, and I just wanted to call your attention to a pathway along the creek that is a city easement, so it is essentially a paved asphalt pathway, although it's not technically a pedestrian path. It's really to access the sewer. However, in practical use, it's not how the sewer is accessed. There's 2 manholes at either end. One is near the sidewalk by Sunrise, and the other one is actually separated from this pathway. And it is accessed really from the terraces, sort of circular road around the building. And it seems just from talking to the sewer folks today over at Public Utilities that it was probably developed, before the buildings and things. And so now it's just this kind of leftover, it's sort of bit of infrastructure. And but what it is it's an attractive nuisance. It's basically a very uneven surface. It's got a lot of cracks and dips because of how the drainage works. And you've got this population of 200 senior citizens, many in walkers and scooters, and just in general in a point of life where they have falling risk, and it should really be maintained as to ADA standards, accessible standards. And even though it's not technically a pedestrian path. It's been in continuous use for many years. Just talking with one of the employees there that's 16 years employee, it's just been routinely used. So it's just something, please, to take a look at, because it is very hazardous. It's not only is it uneven and cracks, it also has a lot of acorns and just debris and other things along it. And it's something that is used routinely and is a hazard at the same time. So that's something to take a look at. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else here tonight that would like to make a comment on any item that's not on the agenda? Now's your time to come forward. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close public comment and we'll move on to the consent calendar, and our clerk will announce the procedures for the consent calendar.
Thank you. All matters on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and will be approved by one motion of the City Council. There will be no discussion on consent calendar items unless a member of the City Council staff or a member of the public requests that a specific item be pulled for further discussion. At this time, neither council or staff has made such a request. Is there a member of the public that would like to pull an item for further discussion tonight from consent? Okay.
Move the consent calendar.
Thank you. Seeing none, so tonight, the City Council will consider consent calendar items 6.1 and 6.2, 6.1 through 6.12. And we do have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Howdeshell with a second by Councilmember Rakucci. We'll start our roll call with Vice Mayor Albert.
Yes.
Councilmember Howdeshell.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Bernasconi.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move into item 7.1, which is the Sunrose Apartments Permanent Supportive Housing Project, Regulatory Agreement, Loan Agreement, Promissory Note, and Deed of Trust. And we'll have staff start with the presentation. Good evening, Tricia and Melissa.
Good evening, Mayor Bernasconi and City Council. I'm Tricia Isom, Housing Manager in the Economic Development Department. And I'm here tonight presenting the loan documents for the Sunrose Apartments. This project came about when Placer County applied to HCD for Project Home Key funds in 2021. They were awarded $23.5 million for acquisition and rehabilitation of the Hampton Inn on North Sunrise and Douglas Boulevard. Placer County chose AMI Housing, otherwise known as Advocates for Mentally Ill Housing, to own and operate the Sunrose Apartments. City Council approved an application to HCD in June of 2023 to loan $1.5 million of home program income funds to AMI to assist with converting the hotel units into permanent supportive housing. Over the last year and a half, the Housing Division has been working with HCD through the application process, and we recently received approval for the home funds, and that's why we're here tonight. Once Sunrose Apartments has been fully renovated, they will consist of one manager's unit and 82 studio units for persons coming directly from homelessness. Units are currently being rehabilitated to include kitchenettes, and the project should be completed by mid-March. The Roseville Housing Authority is also providing 8 project-based vouchers, 4 of which are for our veterans. And AMI will be providing residents with on-site supportive services, so it's a great match for our Housing Choice vouchers. In my opinion, the biggest benefit of the Sunrose Apartments will be providing permanent supportive housing to Placer County residents that are experiencing homelessness. But there are many other benefits to the community, including providing units that are affordable to residents that are extremely low income, which for a one-person household, it's just under $25,000 a year. Housing staff will be monitoring the affordability of the project as well as management of the project for the next 55 years. And because we're monitoring this project, the units will assist with meeting Roseville's Regional Housing Needs Assessment. That's the requirement from the state. Lastly, expending $1.5 million of home funds all at once, it just assists the Housing Division in meeting our funding agreements with HCD. Now that HCD has approved the application, City Council can review the negotiated loan documents, which will secure the loan and affordability of the project for the next 55 years. The terms of the $1.5 million loan include a residual receipts loan accruing on the outstanding principal balance at a rate of 3% per year. These terms are consistent with previous city-assisted affordable projects. Again, the rehabilitation of the project is scheduled to be completed by mid-March, and then the units must be fully leased by May of 2025. So AMI's going to have to move fast. Tonight, staff recommends that City Council adopt a resolution approving the regulatory agreement, the loan agreement, the promissory note, and deed of trust in the amount of $1.5 million from the Home Program Income Fund between City of Roseville and Advocates for Mentally Ill Housing, and authorize the city manager or his designee to execute the documents and any other necessary documents to fund the Sunrose Apartments project. This completes my presentation tonight, and I'm available for any questions you may have. And then we also have Jennifer Price, the CEO of AMI Housing, in the audience this evening if you have any additional questions about the project.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tricia. I will start our discussion with the council. Do any of my colleagues have any comments, questions?
Tricia, how is the loan repaid?
It's paid all in a balloon payment after 55 years.
And it comes from the county, or it comes from state fund, or a portion of those who are living in the apartments? I mean, how does that?
That will be determined really at the end of the 55-year agreement. More than likely, what typically happens for an agreement this long, they'll do a rehabilitation after 15, 20 years, and there's just loan on top of loan that.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Any other questions?
Just one over here. Amity Housing has done other apartments here in Roseville, have
Several.
a good reputation.
They have an amazing reputation. We've been working with them. City of Roseville really started our relationship with them in 2017 when we started running homeless prevention rapid rehousing. Well, we started funding homeless prevention rapid rehousing programs. They own and operate the 319 Main Street project. That was really our introduction with them. But they have several other properties, including Monarch House. And yeah, they're a wonderful partner.
Tricia, can you talk about the current occupancy there? Because I know we've toured it at times, and
I do believe right now, and Jennifer can correct me if I'm wrong, I do believe right now there's 36 units that are occupied that have been rehabilitated. They're working on the balance.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll open it up to public comment. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to comment on this item? Please come forward. Good evening.
Veronica Blake, Placer Community Foundation. First, I want to acknowledge the City of Roseville for its long-term commitment to affordable housing. In our work, we frequently refer to your work as an example in the region of how housing gets built for our workforce, for seniors, for veterans, and for disabled members of our community. Your leadership and work in this space is greatly appreciated, and you serve as a beacon of hope for the Sacramento region and those of us who are working on housing for all of our residents. We have enjoyed a relationship with AMI that spans over 15 years, and our donors are completely satisfied with the work that they do and very pleased for how they handle our most vulnerable. This project, as described, is a very rare opportunity to create critical permanent housing for extremely low-income residents in our community, and we encourage your council to support this next step. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to comment and thank everyone at the City of Roseville for doing the next right thing. It's an impressive track record, and keep up the good work.
Thank you for your comments, Veronica. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Price. I'm the CEO for AMI Housing. I've met some of you before when we've toured the facility. I'd like to say thank you so much for your leadership, your support, and for the opportunity to assist us with completing our rehab project so we can get all 82 units up and running. AMI's current and future tenants also thank you. In June 2024, we finished the first phase of our project and we opened up 36 units. And we have them fully occupied. And the people who are there are very appreciative. It was a joyous moment for many involved. Many had gone many years without having a roof over their heads. Our tenants are 30% of the area median income, which, like Tricia explained, means they make very low income, usually below $25,000. Most of our folks make about $1,100 a month. They can't afford housing out in the community. An opportunity like this is literally life-saving to them. We do target chronically homeless, and we also target people who are veterans, and we target transitional age youth and former foster youth. So this is an important program. It's very much needed in this community, and the people who are there are so thankful for the opportunity that this site has provided them to live in our community. So thank you, and I'm here for questions if you have any.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your work too, Jennifer. Anyone else would like to comment on this item? Okay, we'll bring it back to the council.
I will gratefully move this item because you guys, I want to return the compliment. You do excellent work, so I will move this item.
Second it.
Thank you. With that, on item 7.1, the City Council will consider adopting Resolution Number 25-031, approving a regulatory agreement, a loan agreement, a promissory note, and a deed of trust by and between the City of Roseville and Advocates for Mentally Ill Housing, Inc., and authorizing the city manager to execute it and any other related documents on behalf of the City of Roseville. We do have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Haudashelt with a second by Vice Mayor Albert. We'll start our roll call with Vice Mayor Albert.
Yes.
Councilmember Haudashelt.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Bernasconi.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move into item point 1, which is a fiscal year 23-24 year-end financial report and fiscal year 24-25 budget adjustments. Good evening.
Evening. Hey, Mayor and City Council. I'm Scott Pettengill, Assistant Finance Director, and with me tonight is Nancy Roethlisberger, the city's budget manager. And tonight we are presenting the year-end budget report for fiscal year 23-24. And this report provides an overview of the city's financial performance over the past year and also includes a recommendation for a budget adjustment related to the general fund year-end surplus. So we'll begin with a brief overview of our presentation this evening, and following that, Nancy will take the lead on presenting the year-end results for the general fund, our enterprise funds, and a few of our development fee funds. Once Nancy is finished with her presentation, I'll wrap up with an overview of a recommended budget adjustment that accompanies this item. So starting with an overview, this year-end budget report covers the fiscal year that ended on June 30th of 2024, and this item focuses on our fourth quarter budget report, which highlights the budget to actual differences and provides the year-end budget surplus for the general fund. Our staff, along with our independent auditor, are currently working on completing the city's annual comprehensive financial report, or ACFR, and related audits. We expect to present those reports to City Council in the next couple months. Although we're still finalizing the annual reports and audits at this stage in the year-end process, we do have a clear and accurate picture of how we ended the fiscal year. And finance staff have summarized the budget results into this year-end report that Nancy's going to go over to a little bit in a moment here, which only will focus on the city's primary funds, although it is important to note here that the city does manage about 200 funds each year. Before I hand it off to Nancy, though, I did want to take a moment here to acknowledge the finance accounting team and all the staff across the city for all their work on this year's year-end close process. It's a complex process, and it takes many months and a lot of long hours. And we're really fortunate to have such an amazing team of finance professionals in the city. And I do want to especially recognize our accounting manager, Terry Quinlan, and our accounting supervisor, Fawn Ramirez, for all their outstanding work and leadership this past year. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Nancy to go to the next portion of the presentation.
Thanks, Scott. Good evening, everybody. I'll begin with an overview of our FY24 general fund operating results. And this report, the report related to these slides is in your packet. And I want to say thank you to Alexandra Marquez. She's the budget analyst in finance who puts the quarterly financial reports together. So overall, the general fund ended FY24 with a $15.9 million surplus. And that's comprised of $3.3 million in revenues that were received over budget and $12.6 million in expenditure savings. And that $12.6 million includes the deferred $4.6 million planned additional discretionary payment, ADP, to CalPERS. So FY24 in general continues to see suppressed consumer spending, and that's due to the ongoing effects of inflation and higher interest rates, and a continued shift that we're seeing toward spending on taxable goods to services that are not taxed. So our sales tax did fall short this year as we had forecast, but property tax and other revenues, especially those related to development, exceeded their budgets, and this offset the shortfall in sales taxes. And later in this presentation, Scott will discuss our recommendations for the use of this FY24 surplus. Now we'll look at our general fund revenues. This table is an overview of the larger sources of revenue and the factors that contributed to the $3.3 million in positive results. Our Bradley Burns sales tax ended the year $2.6 million under budget, and Measure B sales tax has exceeded its estimate by nearly $200,000. Property tax revenue exceeded estimates by $2.2 million, and this got us up to $72.6 million this year compared to the budget of $70.3 million. This result is a 7% increase over last year. That's driven by continued development in our city and increasing property values. And lastly, that other revenues category at the bottom, this exceeded its budget by $3.5 million. This includes building permits, plan check, engineering inspection fees, as well as interest income in the general fund. And most of those categories exceeded their budget. Now we'll look at expenditures. This table displays the general fund departments and the category other expenditures at the bottom. All departments in the general fund ended the year at or under their budget estimates, due mostly to salary savings from vacant positions, as well as reduced spending in materials, services, and supplies. The general government section there, that's the fourth line down on the table, that includes our city council expenses, city manager's office, the city attorney's office, city clerk, finance, public affairs, and communications, and human resources. So overall, general fund expenditures ended the year 94% of their budget, and this equates to that savings of $12.6 million that you see circled there after we account for some encumbrances that were related to service agreements that will be pushed into FY25. And now we'll move on to our enterprise funds. This shows the revenues for our enterprise funds. Our utilities, that's electric, water, wastewater, and waste services, all ended the year above their revenue estimates. Transit, transportation, and youth development ended the year below their estimates, and I'll review some details coming up. Next slide. Okay, electric revenues ended the year 11% over estimates, and these are always due to several factors. Here we're going to, I'll mention there was an increase in wholesale energy sales. There was higher than expected usage during times of warmer than average temperatures, and there was an unbudgeted sale of greenhouse gas emission allowances from the California Air Resources Board. And then for environmental utilities, water ended the year on budget with an insignificant variance. Wastewater exceeded its budget by 10% due to higher than estimated reimbursement from its regional partners, as well as new development and increased usage, especially among commercial customers. Waste services also exceeded its budget, and this time by 3%, and that's also due to development and increased usage. Transit and transportation, they both ended the year below their budgets, but this ultimately aligned with their actual expenditures. Since their expenditures were lower than planned, their reimbursements of local transportation funds, which is the revenue source in these funds, was also lower than budgeted. Youth development ended the year 22% below its estimate. Adventure Club, which is the bulk of the youth development fund, had registrations lower than anticipated. And that's due to a state-mandated program, after-school program on our school sites that offers a similar service. And there's also limited staffing in Adventure Club, which is a challenge to expanding registrations and thus impacts their ability to increase revenue. Now we'll look at expenditures for the enterprises, and you can see on this table that all of these ended the year under the budget. Beginning with electric, this positive year-end result, there was 6%, was due to a host of factors, again, which included here lower than expected power supply costs and chemical consumption, and underspending on public rebate funds, and that's due to delays in construction of all electric homes in our city. All of the EU funds ended the year under budget, and that's primarily due to salary savings from vacancies and lower than expected spending on materials, supplies, and services. Additionally, there are some delays in projects and consulting work that they pushed from FY24 into FY25. And some of these savings will be transferred into the EU rehabilitation funds to pay for projects or into their rate stabilization funds to mitigate against future utility rate increases. Transit and transportation, both of these ended the year under budget for their expenditures. Transit saw lower than expected ridership, and that reduces their need for spending on contract services. There are also some delays in projects and savings from their vacant positions. Transportation experienced salary savings as well from vacancies and lower spending on things like bike trail-related repairs. They had some events, planned events that came in under budget, and just other general savings in their materials, services, and supplies. And youth development ended the year under budget as staff there continue to take measures to reduce their overall expenditures to offset their revenue shortfall. Okay, so we're going to look at the year-end results for the Fire Facilities Fund, Public Facilities Fund, and Strategic Improvement Fund. Okay, so for their revenues, these are development-based fee funds. And for all of these funds, their revenues exceeded estimates. Fire facilities was ahead over $500,000, public facilities over $200,000, and strategic improvement over $300,000. And this is due to increased fee collections as well as higher interest than anticipated in each fund. And lastly, this slide provides an update on the fund balances in each of these funds. Fire facilities ended the year at $1.6 million, public facilities at $19.1, and strategic improvement at $3.5 million. And these funds are contributing towards several of our ongoing capital projects, such as the soccer complex, the baseline traffic signals project, the police department expansion, and several others. And I'll turn it back over to Scott.
Thank you, Nancy. So now I'll move on to the recommended budget adjustment that's included in this item. So this item includes a budget adjustment that will appropriate that $15.9 million in fiscal year '24 general fund surplus funds on several one-time high-priority projects and initiatives. And these initiatives and projects are aligned with the City Council strategic plan and then 10 to the Measure B sales tax measure as well. So on this chart, it provides an overview of the recommended budget adjustment. And if you start from the top, this budget adjustment includes about $4 million for parks, recreation, and library projects. And this includes about $150,000 for the courts at Gibson Park, which will allow parks, recreation, libraries to complete sidewalk improvements along the park frontage area. It also includes $3 million for the West Side Maintenance Yard, which will establish a satellite corp yard on the city's west side. This facility will provide storage for equipment and materials, as well as a shop and office space for operations staff, with the goal of improving efficiency and service delivery in that area of the city. Additionally, the budget adjustment includes $600,000 for rehabbing and upgrading youth development facilities. And this includes improvements such as flooring and painting and cabinets, HVAC, ramps, roofing, and some new programmable locks. An additional $250,000 is also included to fund the design phase of the Verdon Street Town Square Spray Ground Upgrade Project. Next, $930,000 is recommended for replacing police department equipment, and this includes $480,000 for body-worn cameras and $450,000 for other critical equipment such as ballistic vests and shields. Also included is a recommended transfer of $1.5 million to the Fleet Replacement Fund to address a forecasted shortfall in the fiscal year '26 budget, so next year's budget. And this will provide for the replacement of vehicles in our police, fire, parks, recreation, library, public works, and development services departments, with the fire department vehicles being the largest component of that transfer. The recommended budget adjustment also includes several investments that are focused on future planning. And this includes appropriating $4.6 million for an additional discretionary payment to CalPERS that was approved in fiscal year '24, but we deferred it due to our sales tax revenue concerns. We will be recommending that we continue to defer this payment, and I'll be going into more detail on that in our next first quarter report. We are also recommending a transfer of $1.5 million into the Pension Reserve Trust, which will help mitigate long-term pension liabilities. And this transfer will bring the balance of the trust from $21 million to $22.5 million. There's a recommendation to transfer $1.5 million into the General Fund Capital Reserve to address future capital needs. And this transfer will bring the balance of the fund from $3.9 million to $5.4 million. And lastly, this budget adjustment includes a recommendation to transfer $1.8 million into the Strategic Improvement Fund to provide funding for strategic investments that will eventually yield general fund revenues. This transfer will bring the forecasted fiscal year 25 balance in that fund from $8.1 million to $9.9 million. So with that overview of the recommended budget adjustment, that will conclude our presentation, and we're available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that. Council, do you have any questions of staff before we open it up to public comment?
Yeah, on the fleet replacement, what is, can you point to anything in particular that's generating the shortfall?
The cost of vehicles has gone up pretty significantly over time, and so that outweighed the amount of money that we were saving over the years prior, and so we've ended up with a shortfall. I didn't bring the list with me, but the majority of them were fire vehicles.
Any other questions?
No.
Scott, the list of the surplus, the projects that you just went over, can you talk about how that list came to be? Because I think that's important for the public to know, too. Or Dennis?
I'd like to ask Dennis to take that one.
I'd be happy to take that. As part of our process during the fall each year, once we're finalizing the year-end results in the general fund, the city manager works with all of the departments to identify the needs that the departments have for special projects. And then we go through a dialogue at our department head retreat each year to prioritize all of these one-time needs. And we look at the city council strategic plan. We look at the priorities from the Measure B initiative to kind of identify the one-time initiatives that kind of rise to the top of the priorities. And you notice there that we're looking for categories of public safety, parks, recreation, and libraries, but also investing some of these one-time funds for the future to be prepared for the next economic downturn.
Yep. Thank you for that. We're in a great position to be able to have this funds left over. I think it says a lot about our fiscal responsibility, too. Okay, I'll open up to public comment. Any students, any accounting folks out there? We'll close public comment if we don't have anyone coming forward. Okay.
Is there extra credit if they come forward?
Yeah, I mean, why not? Most of them are seniors. They might need it, huh? Okay, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the council, either further deliberation or a motion. Want to read the motion?
Sure. On item 8.1, the City Council will consider accepting the fiscal year 2023-24 year-end report and adopting ordinance number 69112, authorizing certain amendments to the fiscal year 24-25 budget, and declaring this ordinance to be immediately effective as an appropriation measure. With that, may I please have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion on the floor with a second. We'll start a roll call with Vice Mayor Elbert.
Yes.
Councilmember Haudashelt.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Bernasconi.
Yes. Thank you.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, and as soon as we wrap up with one fiscal year, we'll move into the next. So the item 9.1 is before us. It's the fiscal year 24-25 first quarter report and development calendar for the budget.
Good evening again. I'm Scott Pettengill, Assistant Finance Director, and with me tonight again is Nancy Roethlisberger, our Budget Manager. And as with last year, this first quarter report we're presenting tonight will only focus on our general fund revenues. We're not going to be discussing expenditures in this particular report. And the second, third, and fourth quarter reports will follow a similar format to our previous years, with a focus on revenues and expenditures for the general fund and our enterprise funds. And additionally, we'll provide updates on the fire facilities, public facilities, and strategic improvement funds. While we're not currently aware of any notable expenditure budget-related issues or challenges, we do want to keep you updated on the status of our forecast for general fund revenues, especially sales tax, which I'm going to go into a little more detail in this presentation. After reviewing this first quarter report, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Nancy, who will provide an update on our fiscal year 26 budget development calendar. So I'll begin with an overview of our general fund revenues. And this next table here compares the amended general fund revenue budget to the total amount collected during the first quarter of fiscal year 25, or the period from July 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2024. The amended revenue budget totals $210.6 million, with $15.2 million collected during the first quarter. And the last two columns show the remaining balance and percentage collected, which is currently at 7%. This 7% collection rate, compared to the 25% of the year elapsed, is typical and consistent with prior years. And the timing of the major revenue sources like sales tax and property tax causes this difference. Sales tax reflects only 1 month of revenue, and property tax is received later in the fiscal year. Overall, general fund revenues are trending slightly below estimates, and this is mainly due to a forecasted decline in our sales tax revenue. Sales tax revenue has continued to decline since last fiscal year, and we expect it to remain lower this fiscal year as well. And we're actively monitoring this, and we have a plan in place to address this shortfall, which I'll be covering this evening. Focusing in on sales tax, our latest consultant report shows a decline compared to that rapid growth we saw coming out of the pandemic. The consultant's forecast estimates we may end the year about $4.5 million below expectations for Bradley Burns sales tax and $1.5 million short in our Measure B sales tax. As we saw last year, the main drivers for these shortfalls continue to be the high interest rates, inflation, as well as shifts in consumer spending from taxable goods to services and travel, which are not taxable. We're not alone in seeing this declining sales tax growth. Other agencies are facing similar trends, and economists are also highlighting this slowdown. And this graph shows this. It's provided by our sales tax consultant, and it shows the annualized percent change in sales tax from the quarter 4 of 2021 to the quarter 3 of 2024. And you could see that Roseville, which is in that blue line there, along with Placer County and the state, are all experiencing a decline in sales tax growth compared to that unprecedented rates we saw in 21 and 22, which reached over 20%. So diving into the sales tax forecast in a little more detail here, at the top of this slide, which is highlighted in brown, you can see the latest year-end forecast from our sales tax consultant for both Bradley Burns and Measure B. The consultant's estimates range from about $91.7 million to about $95.4 million, with their most likely forecast coming in at $93.6 million. Now, turning to that bottom portion of that slide, which is based on the consultant's most likely forecast, we're looking at a $6 million shortfall, as indicated by that red arrow there. If we see a more optimistic scenario, the shortfall would be about $4 million, but under a more conservative forecast, that shortfall would increase to roughly $8 million. Before we move on to property tax and some better news, I did want to point here that Bradley Burns and Measure B do have separate and unique sales tax bases, which is why the actual revenues don't change in the same proportion. I'll move on to property tax, which is the general fund's second largest revenue source. Based on the latest information we received from the county, we do expect that property tax revenues will exceed the estimates by $1.3 million, reaching $76.4 million compared to our estimate of $75.1 million. This positive outcome is attributed to the continued pace of development as well as rising property values in the city. As I mentioned earlier, you'll notice that there's no actuals shown on this graph here. And that's because we receive our property tax revenues in the third and fourth quarters of the fiscal year, as I mentioned previously. So regarding hotel tax, or TOT, or transient occupancy tax, this revenue stream is expected to end the year on budget at $7.2 million. Now I'll look at a little bit deeper here in Parks, Recreation, Library revenues, as well as development revenues. PRL revenues are seasonal due to the timing of their programming. And as of the first quarter, PRL revenues were at 28% of budget, or $1.5 million, compared to the estimate of $5.3 million. And we are anticipating that PRL revenues will end the year on target at $5.3 million. Building permit revenues for this first quarter slightly exceeded budget, and that's mainly due to the above average submittals for multifamily and commercial building permits. However, we are seeing a slight decrease in single-family dwelling permits, which are returning to pre-pandemic levels. While we expect building permit revenue to slow down as the year progresses, we do anticipate it'll still end the year above budget. Plan check revenue is slightly below budget at the end of the first quarter. However, we expect these revenues to increase throughout the year and ultimately meet the budget as projects currently in the pipeline continue to move forward. Engineering inspection fees are on target for the first quarter and are expected to remain steady, driven by ongoing development in areas like Amaruso Ranch, Creek View, Sierra View specific plans, and the Baseline Marketplace retail project. Overall, we expect development revenues to end the year in line with our forecasted budget of $6.3 million in total. And lastly, other revenues. This category includes items like state and development reimbursements, property transfer tax, business license taxes, passport processing fees, and franchise fees was at 21% of budget as of the first quarter. And this is in line with our expectations, and we don't anticipate any significant variances in this category. So we expect this category to end the year on budget at $15.5 million. So in terms of our year-end forecast, we are forecasting that the general fund revenues may end the year slightly below estimates. And our staff is going to closely monitor general fund revenues and expenditures over the coming months. And we will provide another update with the second quarter report, which will be scheduled for your May 21st council meeting. Revenues in other categories, such as property tax, may offset some or all of this shortfall. And like last year, we do anticipate some expenditure budget savings being available at the end of the year to offset any remaining shortfall in sales tax. But for a precautionary measure, we do want to continue to delay the transfer of the $4.6 million additional discretionary payment to CalPERS, as well as the $1.8 million ADP that we appropriated in fiscal year 25, the current fiscal year, until later in this year when we have a better view of what our sales tax results will end the year. So that concludes the first quarter report, and I'll hand it off to Nancy, who'll go over the fiscal year 26 budget development calendar.
Okay, thanks, Scott. We're moving on to our third fiscal year of the night. This is fiscal year 26, which will start on July 1st. As you probably know, for several months already, staff citywide have been busy working on the budget for the next fiscal year. And the next major milestone in that is the City Council Strategic Plan Workshop, coming up on February 24th and 25th. And then throughout March, all our city departments will be finalizing their budget submissions with the budget team. And on the third week of March, we'll be holding our city manager budget reviews. And that's when all of our departments go and present their budgets to the city manager and the assistant city managers. At the city council meeting on April 2nd, finance staff will present updates on the city's financial policies. Human Resources will discuss position vacancies citywide, and that's to comply with Assembly Bill 2561, which requires us to report on vacancy rates. And then Finance will update you on the city's long-term liabilities, and that's pensions and retiree medical benefits. At the April 16th council meeting, the Measure B Local Sales Tax Citizens Oversight Committee will provide its annual report. And council will hear budget updates from our electric and environmental utilities departments. Then on May 16th, the proposed budget will be delivered to the city council and released to the public. At the May 21st council meeting, you'll hear a presentation on the proposed capital improvement program for the FY26 budget, and finance will present the FY25 second quarter report. On May 28th, City Council will hold its annual budget workshop for the FY26 proposed budget. And finally, staff will recommend adoption of the FY26 budget at the City Council meeting on June 18th. Mark your calendars. And that concludes our presentation on the current year and planning for next year. So we're here to answer any questions.
Okay, excellent. We know this is an informational item. Does council have any questions?
Mayor, I do. The answer remains to be seen. But as part of your projections, have you calculated in any grants for police, for fire, for housing that may not materialize due to federal actions?
Yeah, just in this kind of forecast here for general fund revenues, yet to be seen. We haven't really factored in that into any of these forecasted numbers.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Just a question on CalPERS, because I know we're not paying and we're going and keeping check. And I just want to make sure that we have a lot of money, we have less money coming in than we have had, but that we, keep that in mind, because that's that everlasting big red balloon over our head, just so that we're paying something in it, even if it's not as much as we'd hoped to pay.
Exactly right.
We'll open it up to public comment. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to speak to this item? Okay, closed public comment. Thank you very much for the presentations. Okay, we'll move into item 9.2, Roseville Transit Comprehensive Operational Analysis. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor
I guess they're not
Bernasconi.
excited about this, huh?
I don't understand. It's very exciting. I hope everyone in this room is excited by the time we're done. So good evening, Mayor Bernasconi and members of the council. My name is Jason Tchaikovsky. I am your Public Works Director. And with me tonight, I have Ed Schofield, who's in charge of the Alternative Transportation Division, which runs our Roseville Transit. And to his left is Raul Kumar with Innovate Mobility. He is our consultant on this study. And also in the front row right there, maybe raise your hand real quick, is Richard Frost. He's our Transit Operations Supervisor, so he runs Roseville Transit directly. So Roseville Transit began transporting our community to places they wanted to go 70 years ago. It's been around a long time. Or 50 years ago. Sorry, not 70 years ago. 50 years ago. Now it's less impressive. Sorry.
We were all doing the math, actually. We're like, since the 50s. Okay. Since the 70s.
Sorry about that. Not a
All
good
right.
start. So during that time, many bus routes have been changed and added over the years. However, the basic service model, the way we provide service to the community, has not undergone an unrestricted review, meaning ignoring what is and instead of focusing on what could be until this past year. This comprehensive operational analysis, called the COA for short, is a major part of the overall revisioning that we're doing for Roseville Transit. This includes converting our buses to battery electric, adding things like on-bus Wi-Fi, USB charging. We're adding tap-to-pay credit card readers to make it easier to pay your fares. And we're providing upgrades to many bus stops throughout the city. So as Ed and Raul share with you the details of the data analysis, the public outreach, the proposed changes in store for our riders, I hope you become as excited as I am about the future of Roseville Transit. So Ed's going to start us off with some background about how we got here, the why and the how. So if you can take it away, Ed.
Good evening, council members. As Jason said, we're very excited to be here this evening as tonight's action caps off well over a year of hard work by staff and our consultant. The catalyst behind the COA was simply that our ridership just continued to decline. The COVID pandemic created a significant impact to our ridership, but the downward trend was already taking place well before that. In 2014, our ridership peaked at 402,000 riders, and this last fiscal year, we came in at just over 180,000 riders. It should be noted that this type of decline is happening throughout the U.S., so it's not just a Roseville thing. However, instead of accepting things as is, staff embarked upon the COA to look at different ways in which we could provide service for the residents of Roseville and basically improve what we currently are providing out there. So we understand that the plan tonight, it's not perfect, and there's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to transit. But with this in mind, we feel that we've developed a plan that best balances the need for improved transit for the city while remaining fiscally responsible with our transportation dollars. So with that, I'll hand it off to Raul for tonight's presentation.
Thanks, Ed. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. My name is Raul Kumar, President of Innovate Mobility. I'm really excited to be here, even though we cleared out the room. This is about 16 months in the making. We were brought on back in 2023 to look at restructuring and revisioning transit in the city of Roseville. The staff really set forth some goals of understanding what riders do. What is their experience? Not so much how many riders do we have in the bus. Support some of the growth that the city is seeing. Roseville, as you all know, and through a large part of your efforts, population growth has been pretty significant. One of the fastest growing cities in the state. And then also adapt the services to a post-pandemic world, which is people are traveling differently than they used to. Next slide, please. Why was this necessary? I think Jason and Ed both talked about that. As I did mention, the city has been growing both in terms of population, but also in terms of economic expansion. More commercial sectors, more recreation, more entertainment available here in Roseville. And as we've seen in cities like Roseville all across the country, more people are staying closer to home rather than traveling to big cities like Sacramento or even the Bay when they have more entertainment and those kind of things available to them. And then frankly, we do believe there is transit demand. Yes, we know transit ridership has declined for the last decade, but there is latent demand out there. Now it is more of a matter of structuring the modes and services to meet that demand. Next slide, please. Our approach is quite different, and we hope this is one of the reasons why Jason and Ed brought us on, because we don't look at transit when we first start our projects. We actually look at how people move. We want to understand the nature of mobility in a city. Where do they go? When do they travel? Why are they traveling? So a big part of what we do is collecting data on the front end, and we don't just use transit ridership and things like that. We use cellular pings and many different sources to understand the why, where, and how of people moving, and also how can we improve some of the equity priority communities that the city serves. A big part of once we've collected the data is engaging with the community, and that's not just going out there once and saying, hey, here's all the stuff we're doing, but it's actually a regular engagement, creating that feedback loop, trying to understand what makes sense to them. We have presented to the commission, I believe it's 6 times, and I'll talk a little bit in detail about the public engagement process in just a second. And then finally, the pandemic. I think we're all kind of tired of listening to pandemic considerations, and so this should hopefully be that last step forward to really advance transit in the city. Next slide, please. This has been one of the most in-depth public engagement processes I've been a part of, and I think that really speaks to not only the excitement that residents have of improving transit, but also your staff. Your staff has been instrumental in getting the word out, in addition to rider surveys, which we did multiple, commuter surveys, public open houses, the commission meetings, flash vote surveys. The staff did, I think it was 12 or 15 pop-ups in the area. All in all, we reached well over, I think it was something like 11,000 people, and we received responses from well over 1,000 people. That means it's almost 2 out of every 3 riders that ride the service today actually participated in the process in some way, shape, or form. And we think that engagement is a critical part of this process because people support what they help create. And so none of the work that we're going to show you today really was developed in a vacuum. It was developed in cooperation with staff and the budget, but also to really respond to customer requests and the needs and what really makes transit work, which is riders. Next slide, please. As part of our surveys and as part of our feedback, the number one thing people wanted was frequency, which means more buses coming to the bus stops that people go up to. So How can we get to where we need to faster? Well, we need more buses. Having information in people's pockets that show when the bus is arriving, how can they make their commute, more information, the accessibility, and that's not just access in terms of wheelchair access and people with limited mobility, but also access to the city. So how can we improve access to areas that have recently developed or expanded upon? And then finally, those extended service areas. We received a lot of feedback from the West Park area, the Blue Oaks area, where there isn't currently a significant amount or any transit. Next slide, please. So what we developed was what we call the preferred service plan, and that is, again, months and months and months in making, lots of feedback from the public. But what you see up here is the original or current route structure of the service. The green dots are essentially where people are starting or ending their trips, and if it's green, it means that they can do that trip in about 30 to 40 minutes. The average trip time for a person to take transit to and from any destination in the city is 56 minutes. So the average trip time for anybody who drives is about 12 and a half minutes. So just think it's about 5 times worse to take transit. So the red dots represent those 56-minute journeys. In some cases, we saw hour and 45-minute journeys on transit. So it is a significant barrier when the service does not meet the needs. And we can't just say people who take transit have more time on their hands. They still have places to go. We still have jobs to get to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you click really quickly, the preferred service plan actually resolves about 98% of those long travel times through a variety of ways. One is new expanded on-demand services. So what we've done is created a series of zones. While you already have Aero service, we've actually split that into zones to reduce the wait time, reduce the travel time. We expect people to have to wait between 12 and 20 minutes at the most, rather than 45 to 60 minutes for a bus. So it's a significant improvement. We expect to see travel times, and I'll talk about that in just a second, reduce by an average of 30 to 40%. So people can get to where they need to get to faster. People have to have shorter wait times, and people have more choices to make. That has tremendous social and community benefits like accessibility, reduced traffic, less cars on the road, more access, more ability for people to take transit, and obviously environmental gains, but it also has economic and social impacts. More folks who can get to businesses that may not be able to spend their dollars in Roseville. A better quality of life for folks who may now be able to choose transit as a viable option when they couldn't before. So they leave their car at home and go to downtown for an evening out. Next slide, please. And as I talked about, those projected travel time savings, they're significant. So we actually plotted out this new preferred service plan versus the existing one, and you can see things like service to the Santucci Justice Center from Lewis, Orlando. Lewis, Orlando is a major transfer point for folks coming from Sacramento. We found Santucci was a major area they're going to. Right now, it takes them about 56 minutes to get there one way, and that is not all day. They could be even more than that, where they're waiting an hour or more for a bus. Now, on average, it'll take them 40 minutes. In some cases, we saw from West Park to Blue Oaks, it's up to 50 minutes. We can do that in 16 minutes with this new service plan. So it is significant savings, and we'll show you a couple of ways where we're going to actually help catalyze some of those savings with fares and things like that. Next slide, please. So the new vision for Roseville Transit isn't just more transit, more buses kind of thing. It is an integrated network that works with local businesses, that works with major employers like Pride and Santucci Justice Center, and employs new types of transit like on-demand service in zones and higher frequency service. So on average, routes are between 45 and 60 minutes. That's how often they come today at a bus stop. The plan here is for routes to average every 30 minutes. So just off the bat, you're seeing a 33% improvement in wait times. Next slide, please. I want to give just a couple of examples of some of these new routes. One of them is our proposed Route 3. Right now, you can get from Roseville, downtown Roseville to the Galleria in about 10 to 12 minutes. That's great. We won't change that. However, there's areas like Highland Ranch and some of that area north of at Roseville and Washington where there's no transit today. We're going to provide transit to some of those new communities, and it'll be coming every 30 minutes. Next slide, please. This route, the proposed Route 5, serves the Santucci Justice Center. We work very closely with the folks at Santucci, their employers, their employees, their visitors. Not all their visitors, but, you know, the ones that are leaving every day and coming every day. They told us when they're coming and what time they want to get home, how to get there. And so we created a route that would travel every 30 minutes up to Santucci on weekdays, but also serve some of the new shops along Fairway and things like that and get to the Galleria. Next slide, please. And then another major improvement is new service to the Watt and I-80 light rail station. And this is on something called Rapid Link. This will be a fully electric vehicle traveling all the way from Lincoln through Roseville, serving Sutter and Kaiser to the Watt I-80 station and the Galleria. And then improvements to the commuter service to the new office complexes on Richards, which was a big request from the commuters. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned just a second ago, our hope is that we can really help get folks on the bus by reducing some of the fares, actually. So that Aero service I talked about, which currently operates, it's $3.75 to take that even once. By separating the zones, we can actually reduce the cost of operations and pass those savings on to riders and reduce that cost to $1.50. People with limited mobility, people who have ADA accessibility permission, their services won't change. In fact, they'll just improve. So we've really taken that into account. We've also looked at the commuter service. As I mentioned, we are expanding that, reducing travel time in many cases. And as a result, there will be some increased costs, but non-residents would actually see a little bit of savings for the commuter services. Next slide, please. And I think this is the big one. We were really cognizant of doing something that made sense, not just from the point of view of the rider, but also from the point of view of the city in terms of budget. If budget was an issue, you know, we get buses out there every 10 minutes. We give everybody a car if we could. But the reality is that budget is and always will be an issue. So our preferred service plan essentially is about a 7.5–8% increase over existing costs when you factor in a projected increase in the operating contract budget. Now, we are under evaluation of that, and we do expect that preferred service plan cost for not just year one, but throughout the term of this plan to actually be quite a bit below that number that's projected. And obviously, as was just mentioned, the transit department is funded by LTF, so general fund dollars are not affected by this. Next slide, please. And I think one of the last pieces here is to talk about how this will roll out. This is not something that we can do all at once. Our goal is to really roll this out in phases. And the other part of this is that at every phase, the Transportation Commission will have a chance to look back at the phase. Staff will present an update and also do public outreach at the same time. So staff and the public who we've built a relationship with will have a chance at every phase to comment on the changes. And, you know, a plan is great, but the reality is that sometimes those things change. And so throughout this phasing, there may be some pullback or some expansion that's necessary, and we've allowed for that in the preferred service plan. Next slide, please. So in closing, we really do believe that this is a plan that could not have come to fruition if it wasn't for your residents, your staff. It was tremendously difficult on the part of everyone to be at public meetings, to comment continuously, come to commission meetings. But if it wasn't for that, I don't think we would have come up with a plan that made as much sense as it does now. So with that said, I'm happy to turn it back over to Jason, and I'll be here for any questions.
All right, thanks, Raul. So, Mayor and Council, I hope you get a sense for the passion and excitement your staff have for this new plan. for the future of Roseville Transit. With this COA, I think they created something that balances ease of access with rapid service in a fiscally responsible manner. So the COA is roughly 500 pages long, and we attempted to summarize the document into 16 slides. So Raul, Ed, and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have after that presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know, this arrived
That's a big
Friday afternoon, yes. It's actually very interesting. No, it's very interesting. Thank you for your presentation. Does council have any questions before I open it up to public comment?
Yeah, Mayor, I have 3 questions, I think. How does our COA integrate with other COAs, especially Placer County?
Yeah, so we work closely, mainly working with PCTPA and their team, and work closely with Placer County Transit and Auburn Transit to coordinate as best we could, focusing a lot on the transfers. That was one of the main themes that came out of our public input process. But just from a high level, they were part of the process. Placer County and then PCTPA, they were part of the process the whole way.
And then the Rapid Link is the bus rapid transit from Lincoln all the way down to the Watt Avenue Light Rail Station.
Yes, correct. So that'll go from, the Lincoln Park and Ride through Roseville to Watt I-80.
And then last question, in our COA, so in December at SACOG, we had a presentation on mobility zone equity priority communities. And, equity is one of these words that's in the eye of the beholder. But what was interesting to me is that we have some equity priority communities here in Roseville that you wouldn't think of as equity priority communities. The Galleria, our shopping centers, because they are destination-based, where the employees need to get there. So how did we take into consideration did that come up and we took that into consideration with our COA?
Take it first, and you want to. Well, I would just say, and I'll let Raul expand on it if necessary, but the equity zones with SACOG, we are part of that process, and I know they're still in the process of identifying which zones that they're going to identify. So just know that we are working with them, and we have identified, such as the Galleria, as there's a few opportunities, I think, within the city, but they haven't identified them yet, so.
Yeah, and as I said, equity, is one of these words that can elicit a lot of emotion, but that was eye-opening to think, oh, yeah, wait a second. There's a Galleria with, interior Rodeo Drive, but you've got folks that need to get there to get to work, and we have to provide them options. Thank you, Mayor.
If I can just add just one thing, I think it's important that we use something called the mobility vulnerability index. It's something we've created. It's not just about equity, it's about populations that may be vulnerable to mobility changes, including traffic. And so what we did was we looked at travel times for folks that are in vulnerable areas to some of these major destinations and addressed them as part of a preferred service plan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, sure. Any other questions before I open up to public comment?
I have one. Can you go over the Arrow? What are your, how often does it run? Sure. How many days a week, their hours?
So the Arrow is our on-demand service, and approximately 2 years ago, it replaced our dial-a-ride service. So we've kind of combined, on-demand. So it's 7 days a week. I don't know the exact hours. Say it's like 8 to 5 or something. But yeah.
It said 5 a.m. It said 5 in here.
What's that?
5 a.m. It said
5
5
a.m. Okay, yeah. I think weekends it's a little later. But yeah, it's our on demand. You can call in.
And it's on weekends?
Yeah, it's on weekends as well. So 7 days a week.
Okay.
It said in here that once the introduction of the app, then it really, it increased the ridership by a few hundred people every year.
Yes.
It's the public transit version of Uber.
Yes.
Well, I just remember when it first started, it was, you had to call the day ahead of time, and there was, a lot of different change. And so, people trying to go to the doctors or go to the grocery store, it just made it really kind of hard. And I think also makes you think. I know as my parents got older and couldn't drive, and we were driving them around, it makes me and my family, everybody think about what do we need? You know, we need transit. We need something. I don't want to depend on my kids. I mean, I want to be able to go someplace if I can't drive. And I think this offers something good for everybody, not only, age dependent, but physically. It's there, and it will be a godsend for our community.
Yep. I was at Sun City earlier this week, and they mentioned usage of Arrow and loving it. Yep. Okay. Any other comments from the council? I'll open up to public comment. Does anyone here tonight want to address this item? Our comprehensive operation analysis draft report? No? Okay. Oh, great. Good evening.
Good evening, City Council members. So I would like to speak in support of approving the COA report. I should have mentioned that. My name is Tina Nguyen, and I'm a resident of Roseville for 10 years. I did speak before the Transportation Committee when this item came up back in November, and they unanimously approved it. And I think they had good reason for it, as staff and everyone else has already outlined. Particularly that the preferred service option is the one most appropriate for comprehensively addressing the city's future growth, looking out for the next few years as well as the medium term up to, I think it was 10 years, the outlook. In particular, I think it is important that these changes be made, or that we get the ball rolling on them. The 3-year grant for the Rapid Link service, I think it is important that we have appropriate local services that dovetail into that, so that the city is getting the maximum value out of that grant money. With regards to the Arrow service, I think the zone model will provide a great boost simply because it makes effective use of the existing vehicle stock, as well as reducing delays for users. I personally have tried to use the app a number of times, and while successful at times, other times it's just unworkable because it would say that the next available ride is like in an hour and a half for a destination I could walk there faster. So it would be certainly very nice that the zone system would allow those vehicles to stay closer to me, and therefore I would be able to have less delay to get to those destinations. Overall, I think that the, I believe it was 7-8% figure is a modest cost increase, but I think it delivers a lot of value for the city and its residents. Since the Transportation Commission unanimously approved the COA report, I hope that you would do the same this evening. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Anything else? Anyone else? Good evening.
Hello, my name is Luca. I'm a relatively new resident here. I'm also a disabled veteran, and I can no longer drive. So I'm very much in support of increasing all kinds of transit opportunities that we can. Because the few months that I've been here, I got to be honest, it is hard going from a place like New York City, where I have a lot of autonomy, to here, where I have to rely on my caregiver for going to the grocery store anywhere. And that opportunity is not always available, which for a lot of elderly people and disabled veterans, it creates a very isolating situation. So things like this, I think it's great for the economy, provides new opportunities, but it's also just better for everybody's health in general. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Luca, and welcome to Roseville. Anyone else? Thank you for your comments. I'll close public comment. Bring it back to the council unless there's any further deliberation. We'll have a motion.
Great.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Second, let me read.
You want to read it?
Thank you, yes.
I'll move Carmen's recommendation.
Thank you. On item 9.2, the City Council will consider approving the Roseville Transit's Comprehensive Operational Analysis, or COA. If I can please have a motion.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor with a second. We'll start our roll call with Vice Mayor Albert.
Yes.
Councilmember Haldeshelt.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Bernasconi.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Excellent job digesting 500 pages down in
Next item is a public hearing. It's our last item of the evening. Item 10.1, Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act hearing for Heritage Park Apartments. I'll open the public hearing. and ask staff to make the presentation. Good evening again.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Scott Pettengill, Assistant Finance Director. And this item before you this evening is a Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act hearing, and it's often referred to as a TEFRA hearing. So the federal TEFRA requires a public hearing to be held by the governing body of the jurisdiction in which a project to be financed by tax-exempt bonds is located. So the purpose of the proposed bond issue that we bring to you this evening is to refinance the acquisition, construction, improvements, and equipping of an affordable rental housing project. The location of the facility is at 1098 Wood Creek Oaks Boulevard, and the project name is Heritage Parks Apartments. The project is operated by Heritage Park Apartments LP, or a partnership of which Sant Anton Capital LLC is the general partner. The apartment complex is on the corner of Junction Boulevard and Wood Creek Oaks Boulevard. And the borrowers requested that California Statewide Communities Development Authority, or CSCDA, serve as the municipal issuer of the tax-exempt bonds, not to exceed $35 million. Debt issued by the CSCDA will be the sole responsibility of the borrower, and this means that the city will have no financial or legal obligations or responsibilities with regard to the repayment of this debt. So the recommendation for council action tonight is to adopt the resolution approving the issuance of bonds by the CSCDA for the benefit of Heritage Park Apartments Roseville LP. And this concludes my presentation on this item, and myself and Anthony Jeremiah from Sant Anton are here to answer any questions about the project.
Great, thank you. Before I open it up to public comment, does council have any questions for this item?
Just a comment, the Heritage Oaks Apartments have been there forever. It's one of our first ones, and they've been, every time you pass by, everything looks really nice. It's, you know, and I know a lot of people who've lived there that have come to council about other issues, and I've lived 10, 15 years there and called it home. So it's a good example of an apartment complex that's run well.
Agreed. Okay, I'll open up to public comment. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to speak to this item? No? Okay, well, we'll close public comment. I'll close the public hearing. If the council has any other questions, comments? If not, we'll ask the clerk to read the motion.
Thank you. On item 10.1, the City Council will consider adopting Resolution Number 25-020, approving the issuance by the California Statewide Communities Development Authority of exempt facility bonds for the Heritage Park Apartments. May I please have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion on the floor with a second. We'll start our roll call with Vice Mayor Elbert.
Yes.
Councilmember Haldeshelt.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Bernasconi. Thank you. Motion
Thank you.
passes.
Okay, we have our last public comment of the evening. Would anyone here tonight like to make a comment on any item that's not on the agenda? Now is a good time to come forward.
All right, sort of related to the public transit.
Okay, it's got to be on, I'm sorry, it has to be on an item that's not on the agenda.
Oh, okay, my bad. Well, it is concerning bike trails. I don't know
Go
if
for
that
it.
is.
Yeah.
All right, or bike paths on the street. They are either non-existent or poorly maintained or even segmented away, just a painted line. And again, in the short few months I've been here, there have unfortunately been a few children hit by vehicles, as well as one, I believe, adult male who did not make it. And I just want to invite, I'm sure that there's been considerations of different ways to improve the bike lanes, whether that's putting ballast or other things, but I do believe that it is something worth investing in.
Thank you for your comment. Luca, if you wanted to leave your phone number on a yellow card here for staff, we can have someone follow up with you. Okay. Okay, anyone else? Okay, we'll close public comment, and we'll see if our city manager, city attorney has any comments before we move into council comments.
Additional reports, thank you.
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Pauline, you want to start us off with some comments?
Okay, just a few things. One thing is that I think most of us went to it was the Roseville Parkway, the bridge opening, so the expansion. And so that's a really exciting thing that we've been waiting for, because what it does is connects Foothills Boulevard with Washington Boulevard for better connection from one side of town to the other, and especially for police or fire, getting to the hospitals, and just driving in general. It just gives another opportunity to be a pathway. So it's great to have that open. As far as any meetings, I had attended South Placer Wastewater Authority meeting, and that's dealing with wastewater, solid waste, and it's like garbage collection and things like that. And it was a good meeting. It was one of our first ones. We have like 3 or 4 meetings a year, and it was updating on what projects are still being worked on and what are the future needs that we have. And so it was getting updated on things and some new things that will be coming. But mostly it's like adding a new laboratory to the areas, because sometimes you don't think of microbiology, but there's a lot of microbiology in keeping your water and maintaining water quality with science. And so adding some new facilities is going to be on the mark. And then recently, just a couple days ago in Sacramento, many of us went to its Capitol Day at Sacramento with California Municipal Utilities Association. So mainly people of water and electric purveyors were there talking to their representatives and also getting some insight from different groups. And here, Roseville's a full-service city, and so we have water and electricity that we run, along with police and fire and libraries and park and recreation. But it was an opportunity to hear some things that are going on this year, and then looking with the new administration coming on, seeing how that will affect things. Mainly, we were there on talking about affordability in all our utilities, and actually affordability was a main topic in most of the groups that we met with, and some of the special presenters that we saw. So it was a lot of city departments from our water, electricity went there, and I think it was a good time to be there. It was also a good time between rain. We got there when it wasn't raining, and we could actually walk there and not be blown away. So I know it sounds silly, but that's really a deterrent when you're trying to go to some of the departments, and they're not always really close. But it was good for not only just Roseville, but the other entities in California who attended. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Alvord?
I have some committee meetings coming up, so I'll have updates next meeting, but not this one. I just want to thank the staff. I know the reports were, looks like many left. Scott's still here. Thank you for the detail. Thank you for adding the balances in there. I know that was a question I asked earlier in the week. So just appreciate the hard work of our staff in bringing information and the transparency for the public that was here as well.
Thank you.
In preparation for my first Western Placer Waste Management Authority meeting, I had a tour with the general manager about a week ago. The meeting's coming up on February 13th. Tomorrow's SACOG's Transportation Committee meeting, and it's an organizational meeting of the year where we'll look at the charge, and then we'll look at funding in the region and have a discussion about that. Next week, there are a couple things. The Honor Guard fundraiser is on Monday. There's a cup of coffee with a cop on Tuesday. And then in the law enforcement theme, last night I'm in the FBI Citizens Academy class, and last night was our first class. Every Tuesday night for 3 hours for 8 weeks. It's a fascinating look at the work those men and women are doing. And then lastly, A little bit of a sad note. We have a lot of great community leaders here, and we interact with them. We lost one, Steve Cho, at the end of January, and, you know.
And I'll mention that in my comments.
You were going to
too.
mention that?
Yes.
I will
Amy's
stop
here.
right there, okay? And I will lateral to you.
Okay. I'm with you on there, though. Since we've last met, in middle of January, we all attended the Roseville Chamber installation dinner to support the incoming board and all that the chamber does for us. I was able to provide a update to a corporation that gives to the Nicole G. Scholarship, which you remember was funded out of a 2022 State of the City that we did. That Nicole G., our fallen Marine, that fund is now at $50,000. I thought that you would all like to know that. It gives $1,000 to students in the Roseville Joint Union High School District who have an interest or plan on serving in the military, so that's wonderful. I've served on the LAFCO City Selection Meeting, and we nominated Lincoln Council Member Whitney Eklund to be our representative on LAFCO, with Rockland Council Member or Vice Mayor Dave Bass to be the alternate. Many of us attended the Fogo de Chao ribbon cutting, a beautiful new Brazilian steakhouse that's across from the gallery. We were all there to support them. Many of us attended the BIA, the Building Industry Installation Dinner, to support their incoming board. Last week, I participated in the point in time count, which is done through the county that counts individuals who are unsheltered. I know Councilmember How to Shout took part in that too, to support our partners at the law enforcement and at the county, social services. I spoke to probably 300 women of the Daughters of the American Revolution a couple weeks ago. They had their national meeting there. It was very fascinating at Sun City. I'm glad to take part in that. We've had a Lunar New Year. And the last thing I want to mention is I was at Sun City earlier this week. I was asked to speak to a group there. Amy's here, who heads that up, of a group of probably about 50 interested Sun City residents were there. They had many questions, brought many of the questions back, and Dennis is, I think, circulating some of those questions, great questions about roads and safety and development. But with that, and Amy, I don't want to call on you to come forward, but I'm going to say a few words about your husband. And I told you that I would adjourn in his honor this evening. Steve Cho passed away after a battle with cancer. He lived in Sun City with his wife, Amy, and during their time in Sun City, he was very active and very vocal. Engaged member in city council and here within our city, and he has sat in these chairs before and has provided us his wise counsel. So I wanted to just share a few things about Steve, and this is from Amy, and some of these I've witnessed myself. He was a family-first person. He had a passion for advocacy and outreach, and he sought to make the community better, and he did that. We heard from him during the districting process a few years back. He highly educated, had a master's degree, USC in computer science. He served on the Fremont Planning Commission, served on the Fremont Charter Commission. He was on the Fremont City Council and had a term as vice mayor. There are many other things about this gentleman and this community member, but I told Amy that I thought that it would be appropriate that in his honor, the council would adjourn the meeting for this evening. So unless anyone else has anything to add, I would like to adjourn in Steve's memory. We'll be back here on February 19th, and thank you for being here tonight, Amy. And if you want to come forward, no one can hear you. So if you want to say a few words, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you would need to come to the microphone.
Well, I just want to thank you very much for closing the meeting in his memory. And in a way, when we came to Roseville, he thought he was retiring from what he did in Fremont. Our daughter lives in Roseville, but apparently he got himself into a lot more things again. and I usually tag along with him. So I will continue to do those types of things. And thank you very much tonight.
You're welcome. We're honored to do that for you.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, we will adjourn in Steve Cho's memory, and hopefully we'll see some of you back here February 19th.